Topic today is smart cards in Pfizer Connect. Exploring the success of ubiquitous insights in a rapidly changing commercial landscape. So I have the pleasure of introducing Inigo Aznar, who works at Pfizer. I am on the account team as the sales engineer working with Pfizer. And so I have the opportunity to stand up here for a moment just to say how much of a pleasure it is to work with Pfizer on behalf of the whole account team. They are cutting edge, and it's really exciting to be a solutions engineer on such an account. They've got mobile deployments. They're using the Blue app. They're using the Red app. They're using HyperCards, which we're going to talk about today. In the finance department and in commercial, we're deeply engaged in active AI pilots. And really, I can't think of a feature that exists that's modern in the MicroStrategy stack that these guys are not already using or exploring. So it's a real pleasure to work with them. We're speaking with a real thought leader today in Inigo Aznar. But so just on behalf of the account team at MicroStrategy, it's a real pleasure. Please, everybody, welcome Inigo.
Thank you, Kevin. What it's a real pleasure is to use the technology of MicroStrategy, which I believe is the best in the market for business intelligence. But not only that, it's not just the technology, it's also the people, right? We've partnered with MicroStrategy, starting with obviously Kevin, our sales engineer, with Mark McKay, our account executive. It's been a journey for the last 5 years of really bringing insights to our stakeholders, our user base, in this case, the commercial field force. And also from a consulting perspective, we've partnered with Rajat Bhatt's team. And Hyper is really the icing on the cake of this deployment, specifically for Pfizer Connect. First, a few, somebody of who am I? I work at, for the last couple of years, I've worked at Pfizer Connect. I started 5 years ago at Pfizer in oncology and vaccines. And with the pandemic, we realized that there was a paradigm shift in the way we work in terms of interaction with our customers, the HCPs, the doctors, the clinics, and so forth. And we reimagined the way we engage with them via remote interactions, via call centers, both in terms of inbound calls, receiving calls, but also in terms of virtual presentations through Zoom and WebEx, etc. And that is really data heavy. And so the data component is really important. And so I came in to create data products that would help our call center reps to do their daily jobs with data and with insights. What's funny enough is I'm originally from Madrid, Spain, and I started out right out of college. I started out in a young company at the time, which is MicroStrategy. So I'm ex-MicroStrategy. I then moved to the Netherlands to work for Calvin Klein, which brought me to New York City. And I then joined IBM. And so my experience is across multiple countries and multiple industries. And I live in the city and I enjoy running into the park and traveling with my daughter and my wife, Christine. Let's talk about what is the hype behind HyperIntelligence. I was here last year, and I wanted to really understand how we could really bring all of those insights, all of the investment that we made into our data warehouse and our dashboards and so forth, bring them as actionable information to everywhere where the reps were working, right, to their daily workflow. And that's essentially what Hyper does, right? It embeds information in your applications in the browser. It could be a CRM application like Salesforce, Viva. It could be our call operator, where we have a call platform where we make calls with just on web, but it could also be in Outlook. And it embeds that information so that you can visualize it and with 0 clicks and put those KPIs that you've developed in your MicroStrategy projects right there front and center providing that holistic view from multiple data sets into each of the applications, right? Yesterday with Fong and with Sarab, we saw that there is really a need to really bring those insights without any sort of like technical integration, right? Without incurring an additional cost in integrating data sources to all the different applications, and bring them to light with a tool like Hyper that just embeds there and as an extension in the browser or as a plugin in Outlook to be able to bring those insights for use by, in our case, the field force reps. It's really about creating a data-centric culture for innovation, because you are putting the information right there for them to use. In our case, when we get a call, it matches a number, a phone number, and we understand, hey, this is this client that is calling from this number, and we have all the interactions that they've had with Pfizer, their sales, and demographic details around their address, and what could guide the rep in terms of having the information they need for a conversation that is relevant, that is trusted, and that really enhances the customer experience. So it is difficult. I'm sure you've seen some of the demos, but until you see it, it's difficult to understand what Hyper is, right? The first time our users saw them, it's like they were blown away, because suddenly in their browser, in their CRM application, this pop-out came up with key metrics that are not present in that application, that are from other systems, but that allows them to utilize it without wasting any time to go to those applications. I'm going to give here an example. Here we have Kevin, a customer, Kevin Rooney, in Salesforce, and you can quickly highlight. You see the underline, and you can highlight and get a card. You also have a directory of customers where you can actually search them. In our case, we have over 500,000 customers, and so this sort of like super directory that you get directly in your browser or in your Outlook is really useful to quickly get to the customer. Again, as I said, before the call, during the call, or even after the call. And so as we were thinking, how can we use this information, we started thinking top down in terms of what is our mission, right? From a Pfizer Connect perspective, it's really to provide transformative customer experience to our HCPs in a way that we can provide them with the relevant information they need to prescribe our products, right? So studies around efficacy, around how to use the product, how to understand side effects, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's our mission, but we really have three strategic imperatives from our frontline reps, right? We want to develop them, so we develop their talent, their skills, providing them with the information they need for their day-to-day. And so that means ensuring that they have the right tools to enhance their productivity, to have a good quality of calls, and to provide a customer experience. In terms of customer experience, we really want them to have the right information to understand who the customer is, what are their needs, how they can react faster to their requests. And so the ability to understand when we call a doctor, when they last interacted with Pfizer, what kind of requests they had in terms of samples, how they used our websites, and the overall customer experience that they've had with us, so that the rep is aware of their overall needs. And then from a commercial perspective, we want to understand how those calls are driving prescriptions and ensuring that the HCPs have the information they need to to prescribe our products. And so the way we consolidated this is into different cards. On one side, we would have coaching cards that would be used by the managers to provide that continuous coaching, not just once a month or once a quarter, but have the right information right out of the gate when they use our coaching applications, when they use Viva and look at the rep activity and so forth, to provide direct feedback with the latest information of the last weeks and to be able to coach them to improve their performance. From a customer experience perspective, we wanted to understand how they drive engagement and the quality of those engagements. And so we created HCP cards to align with that strategic imperative that would allow the rep to have an understanding of the customer to drive that customer experience, right? Provided that relevant information that they need. And then from a sales perspective, knowing that each therapeutic area has different markets, different products, different disease states, we created sales cards. I spoke about the top-down thinking, strategic alignment, but at the same time, you need to work from the user experience backward, as I think from Saurabh mentioned yesterday. We have the same thing where we approach this in a way of design thinking, where we partner with MicroStrategy in a workshop to understand how we could understand the pain points, right? The empathize, the pain points that our reps have on the day-to-day, and try to define how we could solve them and define a solution, and start working on specific wireframes, sort of like bare bones about really focusing on the interactions that they have with the customers so that we could create a prototype and really test that with our users, how they would use it, right? And so this process was iterative. Was really quite quickly in terms of like developing the cards, or developing the prototypes. The important thing here was to understand how we address their problems, how we could help them save time and ensure that these cards were adding value as opposed to not using them. And so with that co-innovation or co-ideation workshop, what it allows us to have is the perspective of different stakeholders across different product lines to really have the use cases where we would implement, the reps would use the cards. When designing a card, it's really important to understand how you're gonna match the cards to the different individuals. So for instance, one of the use cases that we had was when we had an incoming call, we wanted to match the phone number. And so the phone number would allow us to identify who it is from, or it could be multiple HCPs because they may work in an office. HCPs meaning healthcare professionals, doctors. And so understanding how you're gonna match the card to the concept that you're trying to provide the use case for is really important. So in our case, we had different keywords. One was the phone number, so it's key from a call center perspective, from an inbound perspective. But also, when we make calls, typically, you're gonna call Dr. Smith. And so we also included the first and the last name, as well as, because we have the customer sometimes represented like last name, comma, first name, we also had that as an identifier. One of the things that we discovered as we were prototyping was that the address was really useful because at an office or a clinic, we have an address with multiple HCPs. And so as we spoke with one doctor, we could look up that address and see all of the different HCPs that worked in that office that would be subject for our promotional detailing. And so we included the address also as a matching criteria because it would allow us to understand all of those customers in that given address. For the coaching cards, we use the rep's name, the first and the last name, but also the what we call the rep ID, right? So we have different applications where the rep ID is sort of like the main identifier. And so in that way, we also match where appropriate. Another component that is really important is, okay, you have limited real estate. You want to be able to provide a more in-depth view of the customer or of the rep. And so we had links, external links for that specific customer, for that specific rep that would take us to that application as well. And so you could be in your call application, you got a call from a given number, it would match, it would show up the card, and I could click on the CRM link and go directly to the application from the card itself. So not only I was bringing information to the call application from our data warehouse from multiple data sources without any sort of like technical integration, and that's without any sort of cost. We were also able to link that application to others through the HyperIntelligence card. Another really useful functionality from the cards is the use of thresholds. And so what we determined that we could use the card color, the header color, to determine whether a specific customer had a good or a bad customer experience based on customer satisfaction scores that we had from surveys in the past. And so in that way, the rep could know if they needed to take special attention and ensure that a customer was considered in a way that that would enable the use of that information for the communication with that customer. Once you have the header, what you have is the ability to put additional KPIs either through panels, graph panels, or directly more granular data throughout the layout of the card. And so, for instance, for customers, we had the last 3 interactions, the sample activities, et cetera. For the coaching cards, we had specific metrics around performance, productivity, overall customer experience that would help in the coaching of that rep. And so the idea is we would use these cards, bring into the different applications, and provide information that is not available in each of the applications by themselves, because we're using the MicroStrategy projects that consolidate in our data warehouse information from multiple data sources. And so that is the real added value without incurring any technical integration costs or technical debt that needs to be maintained and supported. You are able to integrate information from multiple data sources into each of our different applications. And so that gave us the opportunity to really embed all of this information in the day-to-day of a rep or of their managers. And so here highlighted, you really have an activity that they in a different system, right? So when you go to your intranet portal, then we're able to see the organization and look at metrics for each of the reps to coach them in a given organization, right? A hierarchical organization. In Amazon Connect, we're able to embed the information from the cards to a given phone number to understand who's calling me and all the different information from the customer that we have across systems. Same in Viva, in our CRM system, we're able to map addresses, like office addresses, and understand all of our different customers in a given address and get cards for each of those customers. We're able to use, in a browser, I spoke earlier about a global customer directory. So directly in your browser, you have immediate real-time access, in our case, to over 500,000 HCPs. in Google search, you'll go to the browser and combine information for our systems with Google, right? With Google external information about, the clinics that an HCP works at, or any other sort of information that a rep may be looking for, and combine it with our card information that comes from our own internal systems. In Outlook, we are able to get emails from a customer and immediately get information embedded to that email with the customer or the coaching card that is present in an email via the matching identifiers, right? We spoke about earlier, the first, the last name, the email address, the phone number, and the physical address of the office. We also, when we actually have meeting appointments with our specific doctors, the reps are able to, a few minutes before the call or right before the call or during the call, open up the meeting event and get information on that customer directly in Outlook. And so when you have multiple calls in a day and you are sort of like running from one call to another, having this information quickly and at your fingertips is really useful for the reps to really have the information they need to have a meaningful conversation as they speak to the HCPs. And the nice thing about it is that it also works in MicroStrategy dashboards. So in a way, it also simplifies in our own dashboards, as we have the different customers, we're able to highlight and provide cards in the dashboard themselves. So it not only embeds information in external applications in the browsers, we're also mapping within our dashboards themselves, providing that contextual information, which allows us not to build more views, and providing quickly information in the same dashboard without having to go to another dashboards. So this example, for prior reasons, we included just a MicroStrategy org chart, but we're using this and the Pfizer org chart. As you browse through the organization and look at, regional managers, district managers, and then the reps, the sales managers can look at the coaching cards to understand, hey, where are we at in terms of productivity, who needs to be highlighted in terms of their performance and congratulated in terms of their performance, who needs some additional coaching. So it's a great tool also from a management perspective. One of the nice things about the cards is that they have this copy-paste icon where you actually copy the card and you can open up an email and paste that into an email or paste it into a PowerPoint to congratulate a given rep on their performance, right? So it's also a motivator because it allows us to quickly get information on the coaching perspective to congratulate on a given performance benchmark that a rep may have had. And so actually that was one of the first uses that the reps identified themselves. They started playing with it, and they would copy-paste and put it in a presentation and understand, hey, this is my performance over the last 4 weeks, and you would have sort of like a direct export of the data and the KPIs. Another functionality that we have in the coaching cards is the fact that in the external links, we also put an email button where, from the card itself, you could click on the email and it would open up an email to that person where you could comment something about the card in terms of coaching. Same from a customer perspective, we had also the email link so as to enable that communication via email with that customer without having to look it up in other systems. The first use case that we had, and when I came here to MicroStrategy World last year, was, hey, how could I use this HyperIntelligence on a phone call? And that's kind of like our first proof of concept that worked, whereby when we get a call, a number appears, and we get a matching with the phone number with the multiple HCPs that share that phone number. So that can toggle between them and have the information that you need before you've actually picked up the phone, right? And so once they confirm the name, you have all the information there without even needing to ask who it is. unless you have multiple cards, in which case you would browse through the cards. And again, we would hover over the number and the card would appear. And during a call on Viva, we would go to the Viva profile directly from the card, and we would be able to see the different addresses, and we could look at, hey, okay, so you are in office in Main Street 4. I see that another doctor works there, and so you could actually ask to talk to another doctor. And so by mapping addresses, we enable conversations and increase our reach within a given office. The directory component is directly as an extension in the browser. The browsers that we use are Google and Microsoft Edge, and it works really well there, where you can just type a few letters of the name or the address or an email, and you would get the different customer cards matching that specific identifier. And so it's a quick way, and as I said, we have over 500,000 HCPs, a quick way to get information about a customer directly loaded with the KPIs already calculated from the data warehouse into your browser for quick access. One of the features that our reps really loved was they really use Google because doctors change numbers, they change offices, so sometimes they use Google to look up specific doctors. And by matching names and matching addresses, we're able to combine that outside information from different sites with our own data warehouse information that is present in our systems. When we receive an email, so in this case, this is an email from a survey that had been sent to a given HCP, and they provided feedback. And so once you get the email, what Hyper does is it's kind of like when you click on the plugin is installed remotely across all the reps' desktops in the Outlook application. And so enable the plugin. It scans the emails for matching across the different concepts that you have in your Spark cards. In this case, we have a matching across last name. And so what happens is you put on a right frame, and it enables that access to the information of everything that matches both employee cards, rep cards, and coaching cards from a rep perspective. Customer cards and coaching cards. So in this case, we matched with the customer, John Doe, and it would show the card on the right frame, providing context about who the interaction happened with. This email was sent to both the rep and the manager, so the manager could know quickly what happened with the call, when was the interaction, what was the customer experience, et cetera, et cetera. I mentioned appointments and meeting invites and so forth. And so the idea behind this is right before you go into a call, because we have the email addresses and the names, we can match the attendees to cards both for customers and for reps. And so you can quickly, if you're having a coaching conversation, right? We talked about the need to have continuous coaching. And so if you're having a conversation with a person that reports to you, the manager would have information on their productivity and other KPIs that I've taken it out because they're for privacy reasons. But all of the relevant KPIs that we talked, that I mentioned earlier about productivity, customer experience, skills, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is super convenient for that continuous coaching because it really makes it a lot easier. And you have really up-to-date information as opposed to having to go to a system and having, once a quarter and so forth. You can do it every week with information directly in your Outlook. And another use that I mentioned earlier is in our dashboard. So we have this beautiful dashboard that we created, And one way to avoid replicating views and adding more tabs and so forth is to use the cards, right? So in this case, we can, for rep cards, for coaching cards, we have a drop down with different reps and territories. And so as you browse through the different territories in the drop down, you get the card for each of the territories without having to actually click on apply, right? So the card appears instantly without having to wait for a change in the filters, etc. So really useful for quick access to information across the different territories. And once you get to the information, the rep that you want to visualize, you can click on the copy paste icon and copy paste it to an email or to a presentation, etc., to get that information directly. And so the end result of this initial pilot that we're deploying across Pfizer Connect has been an overall improvement in customer experience because we are providing all of that relevant data that our reps need before, during, and after conversation directly in their systems. An increase in productivity. We talked about increasing our reach by matching offices and so forth. Because the reps can access that information quickly in the browser, it's allowing them to reach more customers in the outbound activities and also receive more calls from an email perspective. We've also seen an increase in coaching. We have coaching systems that record all the coaching activities. And so by providing this information in our coaching system, before, there had to be some processes that run once a month with the different KPIs and semester for an incentive compensation perspective. Right now, what we have is that the cards presenting the latest daily information to provide those productivity numbers to facilitate coaching activities. And all of this has resulted in time saving. What they notice is, hey, now I had to go, in the morning to look at my customers, look at information, spend there 20 minutes. Now all of that information that is present in the dashboards, it still can go there, right? But it is present across the different applications, right? The application that I've mentioned earlier, like Viva, the call application, the internet portal, Outlook, et cetera, et cetera. What we look forward to using in 2024 is to integrating AI with the new versions of MicroStrategy 1, right? The cards per se have very limited real estate. That's why we have external links. But what if you could use AI to expand on the information that is present on the card, but really get access to the entire cube or the entire data set that supports all of these cards, right? And so I see a future where we use the AI bots within HyperIntelligence to really have the reps ask additional questions for the customers, or for the managers to ask additional questions to better coach their reps, right? And so both from a customer perspective and from a rep coaching perspective, I see a lot of possibilities that will enhance the use of data across Pfizer for Pfizer commercial activities, and that will allow us to really improve our internal processes and improve our customer experience. And that is one of the goals of Pfizer Connect. So it's fully aligned with our overall strategy. Questions and discussion?
Great presentation. I wanted to see if you were able to share any numbers, hard numbers around some of those metrics, some of your takeaways and results, just how you're quantifying the productivity gains and time savings. Anything that you're able to share on that would be awesome, but great job.
Yeah, I don't have quantifiable metrics in terms of productivity. We've seen an increase in productivity. There are many factors for that productivity because we have multiple initiatives, so we can't isolate them just to the cards. But the general feedback from the initial pilot has been very positive from the reps in terms of the availability of that information and the quickness to get access to it, as well as the ability to engage further with additional HCPs because of the cards being available quickly and the mapping to office addresses. So the feedback is sort of like qualitative, but it's something that we will definitely be looking at in the future to make it more quantitative to understand how it drives productivity, how it drives a better customer experience. We've seen a high rate of responses in surveys with improved customer satisfaction scores. So that's also a great piece of feedback. But again, I cannot attribute it exclusively to the cards. There have been multiple initiatives to increase their productivity and to increase, to improve customer experience.
Thank you. I'm just curious, when you were launching this to your agent base, any roadblocks in terms of, it's this disruptive? Is it influencing the call flow in a negative way? Am I only focusing in on the metrics that are displayed in the HyperCard and potentially leaving out other things that are not there? And then as a second question, did you find any, heavy use on the HyperCard and potentially not going back to the system of record with call log notes afterwards? Any negative on that side?
Not in general. I mean, I'll speak about bottlenecks first. It was a first of a kind implementation at Pfizer. So we had to figure out, how do we set this up in Outlook? So it's a plugin. That was an easy part because we had a team that remotely, and so because you're not going to ask users to set up a plugin in Outlook because it can be a little bit complicated. We had, from a Microsoft Edge perspective, there were some security issues that did not happen in Chrome. Chrome worked well. We managed to get the network team involved so that it could install, the users could actually install themselves the extension. And so we had a whole guide around that. So in terms of getting user adoption, that was the biggest bottleneck, was setting it up on Microsoft Edge. And so once that was solved and we get specific guidelines, that it really went out well. In terms of issues we did notice one specific site where the cards had issues with. It was a site that was sort of like developed internally. It was not a product from our outside company. And what we did was disable the use of those cards. There is the possibility of disabling cards on a specific site, which comes in handy because you may not want to have it you don't want to match names in the New York Times. Like you're reading the New York Times, you don't want to match names there, right? So you could disable specific sites, both from an administrator perspective, but also the users themselves. Another bottleneck that we had was in Outlook, you could have 1 million HCPs, 1 million cards. So in terms of scalability, Outlook is hard. Chrome has a limit around 500,000 HCPs. And what we did there is not all reps need access to the entire all the customers, right? Or the customer universe. Like, for instance, the oncology reps just need access to the oncologists. The internal medicine reps typically are not going to speak to an oncologist, right? And so we segmented doctors to assign to each type of rep the doctors that they were likely to connect with, right? So that in terms of ensuring access to the entire customer directory. And in terms of bottlenecks for productivity, it was quite the opposite, right? Because we provide the ability to disable from certain sites, if they didn't want to use the cards in those sites, then they could just disable the extension in those sites. From an Outlook perspective, because Hyper, what it does is it scans the email, right? And so that only happens when you click on the plugin itself. So you open a specific email, and then you click on the plugin button. So no problems there. So I'm trying to think additional bottlenecks. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Hi, thank you. How are you monitoring the usage of the cards? Are you using platform analytics? to do that?
That's a great point, because all of this interactions happens at the desktop level. It doesn't really occur on the server, right? And so we're trying to figure out how we can monitor the use. Right now, what we've gotten is from the pilot specifically direct feedback on how they were using it and how many calls that they used it, a specific sort of like random tests that we've done with certain users. But it's certainly something that we'd like to explore further. All of the activity doesn't affect server performance. It all happens on the client side. And so that adds a little bit of complexity of understanding, how they're using the cards, the reps.
Yeah, I think we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming, and let's give it up for our speaker.
Thank you.